Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. And today we are starting an all-new sewing project. Or at least it's kind of all new because it hasn't been in a vlog before. However, you may have already seen the beginning of this project, which I put out in a different sort of video, which was about how to draft up or size up patterns from pattern diagrams, as in non-gridded or non-commercial type patterns. So if you have not already checked out that video, you can click right up here or down in the description below and you can see how it is that I started with this pattern. But what we are going to be making today is the Samantha Parkington winter cloak from American Girl. In other words, this little beauty right here. So this is a Black Watch plaid American Girl doll-sized version of the cloak that we'll be making, and I luckily have, I think, all of the materials that I need to make this cloak. I hope I'm not missing anything. I may not have the ties. That's probably the only thing I don't have. And that's something that I've been debating about what to do in place of the ties or as ties, because hers are rat tail. And as you can see with hers, now hers closes with Velcro. I'm not doing that. And Velcro and rat tail, they don't get along. So yeah. That happened. So I do have to figure out what I'm going to do for closures, whether I'm going to do maybe like some sort of a frog or hook and clasp type closure. I haven't decided that, but everything else I have. So let me show you all of the pieces that I have here. Okay, so let's start with the main fabric of the body, the outer part of the cloak. And this was actually found for me by Rena Sews over on Instagram. So I will link her Instagram down below. But we met at Emerald City Comic-Con at the cosplay competition, and she found this fabric at what I believe is a secondhand fabric store up in Bellingham, Washington, and wrote me about it and was like, hey, I'm gonna be driving down past your city next week. I could bring this to you if you want to get it. So I sent her some money. She gave me this fabric. Oh my gosh, it's perfection. And this is the fabric. Wait a second. I seem to have something stuck to my fabric. Yeah, so Dora has claimed this fabric as her own. This fabric has been sitting out in my office for about like 2 weeks now, and since I got the fabric, and Dora has decided that it is the world's most perfect fabric and clearly is hers. So extracting her from this fabric is going to be interesting because she thinks this is her new bed, but it's not. It's a cloak. I'm sorry, Dora. Yeah, I know. So I will be taking this back from Dora. I will have to lint roll it thoroughly because of course I washed it before I put it on the chair. Thanks, Dora. But it is a wool, and you can see the fabric pattern. It is just perfection, and it's a thick wool. This is like a blanket wool. So, I mean, if you thought that the Daniel Deronda project was made with a thick wool, this may be even thicker. The thing is, at least, that this is a cloak, not something that's a tailored garment. So hopefully it won't be too difficult to work with. And as you've seen from that other video, I have already patterned this because I was able to get nearly a perfect pattern just by using the methods that I showed you in that video. So I have very, very tiny tweaks to make to this pattern, which is going to be fantastic. So anyway, that main body of the cloak. This is the lining that I'll be using. I feel like it's showing up a little bit more blue on screen. It's really a navy, and this is a Bemberg rayon. I used Bemberg rayon for the lining of my regular winter coat when I made that a few years ago, and it has worked out really, really nicely. So I figured that it would be a good lining to use for this cloak as well. And I'm also using the exact same fabric, but in red, for the new winter coat project that I'm planning to do next. And then the other thing needed for this that hopefully you can see here is that she has this braid that goes along the collar and also on the little arm openings. And I have found a few different options for this braid, all from Amazon, and I'm not sure which one is going to be best yet because braid and trim in general is a little bit harder to scale from something that is so small. So her braid is about like a 1/4 inch braid that she has on there. And so I wound up getting a 3/8 inch, a 1/2 inch, and a 5/8 inch type of braid just to see. Honestly, the type of braid, if if you can see through the glare, this is the 1/2 inch. This one, I like the style of the braid better than the 5/8 inch, but I am a little bit concerned that the 5/8 inch is actually going to be the scale I need. So whatever I don't wind up using when we get there, I will just return. That's why I haven't opened these, and we will see how that goes. But getting braid like this that's pretty basic from Amazon is a pretty good cost-saving measure because, you know, I need quite a bit of it to go around the collar, and getting that by the yard from Joann's could add up. So this is the braid portion, and really that's all of our materials. So since we already have a pattern, that means that we can go ahead and just start cutting out the fabric. Now my pattern, if you saw that other video, my pattern just goes down to about the high hip. So I will be needing to extend this down to about the high calf length, but all I'm going to be doing from the pattern that I already have is just taking the lines and continuing them down to that length. So hopefully everything will be able to fit really nicely on this fabric. There's 4 yards of the wool and 4 yards of the rayon, and that should be enough for everything. So I'm going to go extract my cat from the wool and start cutting things out. One thing that I do want to mention, because this is a plaid, is that a lot of times you will wind up trying to pattern match your plaids, and it's not really a concern that I have for this project, simply because Samantha, as in the doll, her cloak is not pattern matched. And also I'm working with 4 yards of fabric, and I don't want to run out of fabric by trying to match a pattern that is like a 4-inch repeat. So I'm gonna see what works best, but that is not a priority here, pattern matching. It's a pretty subtle plaid, so I think I should be good either way. And I'm gonna go cut things out now. So I guess all I can say is thank goodness that I shortened the length of the back of this collar, because this is the fabric that I've left. This, and then plus the other half of that, and then there's a little bit more, but it's not like even halfway across, so I don't think that would be wide enough to go up there. So yeah, that's it. So I don't know that I'm gonna get gaiters out of this remaining fabric. That was kind of my plan, to also make Samantha's gaiters, but I'm not sure if this is gonna be enough. So I will pattern them out and see if I can fit it on this, and if I have enough, I will also be making her matching gaiters for me as well. Please ignore my extremely messy floor, but we are actually going to look at spats this week after all, because there's been a setback with the lining, which I will tell you more about shortly. So I have on, these are spats that I made for my Jane bustle gown, like from Tarzan, and I no longer have whatever shoes I made them for. That was years and years ago. And so I'm trying to figure out what my spats pattern will be for these, for really they're the gaiters for Samantha, but I mean same difference. And these don't fit over these shoes, which I think would be the shoes I would wear them with now, because they're kind of like Mary Jane-ish style shoes. They got a strappy strap, but they're the closest thing that I have to Mary Jane's that can be worn outdoors, because character shoes don't get worn outdoors. So they don't fit down at the bottom, as you can see. I haven't buttoned these ones up, but these do fit. They're just annoying to button. And the bottom ones have a 2-inch gap down there at the bottom. So I will have to tweak this pattern a little bit, but the rest of the pattern is still quite nice. Now Samantha's gaiters are wider on the ankle than these are. So these are Samantha's gaiters. You can see that her ankle really doesn't come in. She's also right now wearing boots, but they are wider. So I am a little torn about whether I want to make these quite so fitted, but I like the line of the leg. So yeah, I think I might still make them fitted. So we're going to work with this pattern, and we're just going to extend the bottom 2 inches, and maybe I'll make this a little less fitted right here. But this will be the gaiter pattern, so let's see if I have enough fabric left to actually make these. So 2 things. First, I figured I would explain the sudden shift to the gaiters as opposed to working on the cloak like it was before. So I have cut out all of the wool pieces of the cloak. You can see them just like draped over there on Antoinette. And I went to go start cutting out the rayon, the Bemberg rayon lining. And it's not like I expected. So I have purchased Bemberg rayon lining once before, which was for the winter coat that I made back in early 2018 that I wear like every single day. And that has Bemberg rayon lining, and it is kind of a matte but lustrous fabric, and it has a little bit of body to it, but it's still very smooth. And that was what I was expecting to get for this time, since that's what I've used as Spenberg lining before. What I've gotten instead is actually lining that is like incredibly shiny, incredibly slick and slippery, like very fluid. It feels honestly very much like the super cheap linings that you get at Joann's, but this was not super cheap. The reason that I paid as much as I did for it was because I thought I was getting Bemberg rayon lining, and I bought it from a different store than I did last time because Fashion Fabrics Club, where I got it before, no longer carries navy or really any colors. They're like shades of brown. Basically, I don't know why they've got like 15 shades of brown, but they do. So if you need brown, they have you covered. Anyway, so this lining, I made the mistake of, you know, not really pulling it out and ironing it until now when I went to cut it, because of course it did arrive like a week ago, and I just seem to have this habit of not really looking at the fabric until I go to use it, which has burned me at least once before too, so you'd think I should learn. So anyway, it's obviously super late at night now because it's me, and in the morning I will call the place that I purchased it from and see what they have to say about it. I mean, to be fair, it does look like the pictures on their website, but it's so hard to tell when you're looking at pictures on the website that it's not going to be like what you expected. So just as a comparison, let me show you the two different fabrics. So this is what I received, and you can see it's also honestly a little sheer, but you can see it's very slippery and shiny and has like no body whatsoever. Whereas this is some of the leftover fabric that I have from my coat. It is thicker, it has body, like you can see that drape there, right? And it is not shiny. So just to compare them in the same shot, I mean, look at the body on one versus the not body on the other, the sheen, etc. So that's what's going on here. I'm not happy with this because I paid like 12 bucks a yard for it, and I could get this for $2 at Joann's. So I'm gonna call the place and see what's going on. I mean, it's literally flimsier and lighter weight than the lining that is in the toy version of her cloak. So yeah, I'm not using that, and I am using those to cut the lining. So probably what's gonna happen is I'm gonna try and return what I got. I mean, they have a good return policy, I think. I've never ordered from them before, but they seem to have a good return policy, so hopefully I won't be out for like shipping and whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna return that, and I'm just gonna see what Joann's has. Joann's does not carry Bemberg rayon lining, but maybe they'll carry something a little bit more like this lining, and I'll just make do. And of course I had ordered the same lining for the coat, the red coat that I'm going to make, as I mentioned, which again, this is not what I want for the coat either. So that's why we're moving to gaiters. We've reached a bit of an impasse, and because I'm using those as pattern pieces for the lining, I can't just go and put those together. So yeah, gaiter time. So I am not making the gaiters exactly identical to Samantha's gaiters, and that's because hers have fake buttons and Velcro up the back. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make this a Velcro-free outfit because, frankly, the Velcro is like a major problem with her original cloak. I'd love to hear from you guys. If any of you owned or still own the Samantha winter cloak, please tell me, did the whole like super scruffed up rat tail thing happen to you on the side with the sharp Velcro? Because I don't know how that would have been avoided, and it looks so bad now. I'm probably gonna at some point get rat tail and replace that. Anyway, so I'm not doing Velcro. Against probably my better judgment, I am planning to do functional buttons on the gaiters. I say against my better judgment because on my Jane gaiters that I'm using for the pattern, I hate doing up those buttons. They are awful. Like, they're a little bit better when you use a button hook to do them, but they are still pretty awful to do. But I'm gonna do them anyway because here we are, historical costuming, all of that sort of stuff. So anyway, I looked at what needs to be changed on here, like I showed you before. All that needs to be changed is that this curve needs to be extended 3/4 inch on each side. This is the back of the foot right here, so it just needs to go out a little wider like that. I'm not gonna make the ankle wider because I don't think it's very flattering. Yeah, so I'm not gonna do that. So that means that I can really just use this as a pattern, and I laid this out on the fabric that I have left of the wool and it fits fine. Like, there's enough room for this, so yay. I am going to go ahead and cut that just using this as a pattern. Like, I mean, I'll have to measure how big is the fold in where I have the buttons and the buttonholes over here, because I've just folded it in and serged. So just so you can see this. I don't remember where I got this pattern, by the way. This was a long time ago. I made this in 2011. So yeah, don't remember where I got it, but it was an online downloadable thing, and then I just fitted it to myself. So I'm going to measure how much this little fold facing is, and I am going to then just really lay it out flat on the seams, lay this out flat on the fabric, add my 1/2 inch seam allowance to the sides, and cut, and we're good. So it should be pretty easy. I am gonna do that in the morning, and hopefully by tomorrow evening, since I won't necessarily have a cloak, I will hopefully have replacement lining from Joann's and some gaiters. So it is now Sunday, the last day of this vlog, and we are going to hopefully do a lot of marathon work today, because otherwise, you know, I've just cut out the cloak and made sure that the spats pattern will actually work, and that's all I've done. Because yesterday I had rehearsal. I had what is called sitz probe, where you sit down and you go through all of the music with the orchestra. So I had that for Into the Woods, which pretty sure this video will still be coming out before we open. So if you do want to get tickets to come see me as the baker's wife in Into the Woods, if you are local in the Puget Sound area, it's going to be at Renton Civic Theater, and we are playing February 17th through 27th. So I will leave all of the information on how to get tickets down in the description, and please do let me know if you decide to come, because I would love to meet you afterwards. So yeah, definitely send me a DM on Instagram or leave a comment, something like that, to let me know that you're coming. Anyway, after sitz probe, I got the news that my car had arrived, my new car. So to update you on all of that saga, since I don't think I've updated you recently, insurance finally looked at my car last week from when I'm filming this, and they totaled it, and I got about $10,000 back from that car, which I then used to put the down payment on my new car. I got a Hyundai Tucson Hybrid Blue. So that is now finally all resolved, and Lion's stuff will hopefully be resolved soon. He is still limping. He is not putting weight on the leg that had the surgery. It's been at this point a week and a half since his surgery. He's still in his cone. He will get his stitches out this coming Wednesday and will no longer have to wear the cone anymore. So I'm hoping at that point that we'll see a little bit more progress maybe on his healing. I don't know how long it takes to heal from ACL surgery, so my fingers are crossed that it's not going to be super, super long, because the more time, of course, that he's not putting weight on his leg that he's had surgery on, the more risk he is giving to the other leg to tearing that ACL. It is really common for when dogs tear one ACL to then, within a year or so, tear the other one. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. Please send all the good thoughts Lion's way, because he needs it. Anyway, back to sewing. What I did do yesterday after getting the new car was I went to Joann's, and I got what is actually just poly matte satin, like the Casa collection stuff. I decided that that was going to be a really nice weight for the inside of this cloak, and it would still look really pretty too. It was between this and one of their lining fabrics, which was still stiffer than that Bemberg, supposedly Bemberg lining that I got, and then this. And this was $2 more expensive and just looked way nicer, so I went with this. So I'm going to cut out all of the cloak pieces that I have done out of the wool. I'm going to cut that out of that today. And then the other thing that I want to do is to really work on the spats. I did also get buttons for the spats. So they look like this. They're just black roundish buttons, but I think that those will work really, really great. And I got grosgrain ribbon for the spats, because on Samantha's spats, the button area actually has grosgrain ribbon underneath where the buttons are. Now again, hers are not functional spats or gaiters or whatever. So for mine, it would mean putting the buttonhole through this ribbon. So I'm not 100% positive that that's gonna work, but I do like that detail. So I got it just in case. And then I also got a couple of different tie options for the neck of the cloak. Now, one thing that I'm debating about doing is just maybe even doing a button front, because then I could have it button all the way down. But I do kind of like the idea of still having a little tie or ribbon right here. So I just got a narrow navy. I don't know if you can even see that. And then this, it's covered by plastic, but this is just a navy cording. So we'll see if either of those will work, but hopefully those will be good options. And yes, I did get 20 of the buttons too. So anyway, I got everything hopefully that I'm gonna need, other than potentially the closures of the cloak. I may still need to get something else for that. I didn't buy any buttons for it, so I wanted to see what I have in my stash, whether I go with buttons or like a clasp type situation. I'm really not sure, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We are not there. So the reason that I want to continue on cutting out the spats first, I'd say, before I even do the lining, is because once I cut the spats out of the wool fabric, which I am planning to not line them, I'm planning to do it just as wool. We'll see if that works. I may have to line them, but I'm going to test one out without any lining, and I'm going to cut it out of the wool because at that point I can see if I have any scraps of the wool left, enough to make pockets for the cloak. Now her cloak didn't have pockets, but I think it's really important that a cloak does have pockets. I'm planning to just put them a little bit below where the arm opening is on those like front side seams, and I already have 2 little scraps from cutting out the rest of the cloak pieces that I can use for pockets, but of course I need 4. I don't have to have it match, but it does kind of blend a little bit nicer if it does match, so that's why I figure we'll see if I can get it out of there. So I am gonna go ahead and cut out the spats and see if I can get those pockets cut out and cut out the lining pieces, and I will see you when all of that is done. Hopefully I'll do more than that today though. Everything is now cut out, so it is time to start sewing everything together. And I'm probably gonna kind of sew everything like all at once is my thought. So the spats, the front and back of the one side have to get sewn to the other side. So that's what's gonna happen there first. And then the edges, the straight edges, these are just gonna get folded in, and I'll probably do 1 line of stitching like along the edge. I'm not worried about finishing any of this because this is blanket wool, so it does not fray, at least not so far as I've seen. So yeah, I'm not gonna worry about finishing the edges. It's just gonna get folded in like that, which will give me a little bit less bulk, which that is nice. For the collar, the lining and the outer piece, they just get sewn along the edges. So this edge all around here, all around there, they get sewn right sides together along the edges with the lining and the outer, and then that gets all clipped, all the curves, and turned right side up. So that is what's gonna happen there. I'm not gonna pick it up because it's already laying flat, but I haven't pinned it yet. So that's what's happening there. And then for the cloak parts, all of the long seams, both on the lining and then also on the outer, those all get sewn together separately, so lining and outer, and then I will wind up combining them together. So I'm gonna go do all of that sewing, and I will come back to you when that is done. So again, please ignore my incredibly messy floor, but as you can see, I do have the spats pinned on. They are tiny skosh tight, but mostly fit perfectly. The curve that I changed this heel, that is fantastic. It just fits great there. I did add a little bit to the ankle to try to make them not quite so shapely, but I don't know if that was necessary. Like, I feel like I'm getting a little wrinkle there instead. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it though. I can always take that in later. That's super easy because it will be an exposed seam. I don't think I need to line these at all. They're plenty thick and they seem to be standing up well just with 4 pins in the side, so that's really great. I think I'm actually going to do the thing that Samantha's have, which is literally just to turn this edge under and stitch around the edge. Like, just literally turn it under once because it's so bulky otherwise that I don't want that extra bulk. I'm still a little bit torn whether I want the grosgrain ribbon to go down here underneath the buttonholes. So yeah, I'm not positive about that. I might do a test piece, I think, with a little bit of grosgrain and do a buttonhole that way. But otherwise, I mean, this is ready for buttonholes. I think I'm going to turn the edges first and then do buttonholes, But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much close to done. If I do the grosgrain, it will continue all the way down the foot and then go underneath the foot as the strap to hold it in place. The one thing that I'm thinking about doing though that's different from my other spats, those are so difficult to put on. And I'm wondering if maybe if I put some sort of like a large snap or whopper hopper or something right here on the inside so that I can just have that strap like be loose and then connect it there. I think I may try that because again, those are such a pain to put on. You literally like have to undo all the buttons every time and that's annoying. So yeah, I may try that, but otherwise, I mean, there we go. There are some spats. So let's get to doing those edges and putting some buttonholes in. So here we have the spats that are ready for buttonholes. What I've done here is I folded over the top so you can see that just looks like that on the inside, just folded over. Likewise, the inside lap is just folded over, and the stitches that are on the lap are actually just from me stitching the ribbon down. So I did make a mistake at first, which was I started the ribbon at first just like with enough to fold over at the bottom and then was going to go sew it on top. But I can't do that. I need the part that goes under the foot. So here's the part that goes under the foot. I kind of just like put this on-ish and then saw about how long I would need and then added a couple inches just so I'd have extra. And then I started and I sewed down the very, very, very edges on here all the way down with enough to lap over the edge. I have not yet sewn that edge down, but I need to, and then that will be done. And then here I have all of my buttonholes marked. I wound up having 13.5 inches that I wanted to cover with the buttons, and I'm gonna do 9 buttons. So that wound up being 1 and 11/16 inches between each button. And now I'm gonna go do all those buttonholes. I did do a test first, by the way, just to make sure that I even could do a buttonhole through the grosgrain, like if that would work. So there's my test. This camera doesn't like picking up this plaid, I feel like, but the test winds up looking like that. It was okay. It did get hung up a little bit here, and very similar to my Daniel Deronda buttonholes, I really had to steer it because this wool still is very thick. We've only got 2 layers of wool plus the grosgrain here, and so it's a lot thinner than Daniel Deronda, but it is still very, very thick. So anyway, I'm gonna go do these buttonholes, and that way I can sew on some buttons. Now that all of the buttonholes have been made, I'm going in with my buttonhole punch tool and punching out all of the buttonholes. It looks like this. It's a little chisel, and comes a little piece of wood, and you can see that it has punched open the buttonhole. I've also already sewn on all of the buttons, so that means that all I have left to do is figure out the exact length of this right here and see if I can do like a snap type situation on the other side, see if that will hold. I will probably do that later though, like not in this video, but the rest of the spat, all finished. So I want to talk about pocket placement on the center front pieces here for a second. So what I'm doing is I am basically putting my hand down to where I would want a pocket to hit, and you want to make sure that the bag of your pocket definitely doesn't go any lower than where you can reach. So for me, I wouldn't want the bag of this pocket to be further than like maybe about here-ish, because I think anything else would be a little hard to reach. So probably right about there is where I can pin that pocket on. I know that you probably can't see where the pocket is on the fabric, but it's right here. And I will be pinning this in place and then matching both this side to the other side and also this to the side piece so that I can make sure all the pockets line up. The sewing together of these front seams with the pockets and everything is a little funky, by the way, because not only do you have the pockets, but you also have the arm opening. And this is just a slit. So I've decided for now to go with an 8-inch slit from just about 1 inch above the pocket to 8 inches above that. And that's because I didn't want it to quite conflict with the pocket. I want to have a little bit of room where it comes back together. So for right here, we have the 1 inch, and then the pocket will probably be sewn closed to about like right here. So about 1 or 1 1/4 inches down from the top of the pocket. And then like the bottom of the pocket will be sewn down about here and then down the rest of the cape. So yeah, it's a little funky how this is going to work, but this is the opening I'm going with with for now. I will, once I put it on, I may decide to change that 8 inches or even the placement or something, but I didn't want it to conflict with the pocket, and I want it to still be in the right place, so that's where it's going to be. So now let's go ahead and sew those together. So I just had a bit of a realization that doing these pockets may have been completely pointless, because right now with the arm slit as it is, the pockets, like, I can't actually reach from the arm slit to the pocket because I would have to get my arm farther out the arm slit, and then at that point the pocket's like too high. There's some sort of incongruity going on here that I can't fix tonight. So I think I'm going to instead finish putting together the back piece to these front pieces that I already have done, and then I will take a look at it next week and figure out what to do about that whole pocket and slit situation. Maybe there was a reason that there wasn't a pocket in this originally, other than the fact that it's, you know, for a doll. Maybe capes like this didn't have pockets because you can't physically get to them. So yeah, I'll cross that bridge next week, but for now I'm going to finish up this cape and show you what it looks like when it's otherwise together besides the pockets. And here we are, we have a cape. So there's definitely, I think there's going to need to be some adjustment with the arm size, or arm holes, whatever you call these, the arm openings. Actually, what I've done since I last talked to you was I did open them up 1 inch further, so they now literally run into the top of the pocket, which I don't know if that's going to work functionally speaking, but it does give my arms a lot more mobility. So I definitely needed a 9-inch opening, not an 8-inch opening. And I think that height-wise, from, you know, top to bottom, I think that's really good. The thing is that the pockets are not super functional from there. So here's my arm coming out here, here's the pocket here, but I can, well, actually, no, I can reach the bottom of the pocket. Okay, so maybe that works. Maybe that's gonna be fine. Though, of course, right now the cloak isn't closed. I don't know if that would make any difference. No, you know, I still can do that. Okay, so I think we're gonna be okay. I will have to kind of re-seam up the very bottom of this opening because I just seam ripped it an extra inch. But yeah, I think that's gonna fix that, so great. I think the rest of the cloak looks super nice so far. Although I have sewn the outer, like the right sides together of the collar, I have not yet clipped and turned, so I will show you what that looks like next week. And then I have the one spat that is, again, nearly complete, just needs the snap on here like I showed you earlier. The other spat is not quite complete. It's in the process of me folding down the edges, and then I still have to do buttons, buttonhole, ribbons, etc. So all that sort of stuff. So all of that, plus doing trimming, closures, etc., lining. I haven't even started to put the lining together. All of that is going to come next week, and I'm hoping that I can finish all of it. If I have time, I may even make the hat. I already have a white fur muff or faux fur muff. If I have the fabric left for that, then I might make a hat to match if I can figure that out. So we'll see how that goes. But keep your fingers crossed that all of that can be done next week, because we are going into long tech rehearsals for most of next week. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm super pleased with this week's progress so far. It is toasty. Let me tell you, it's not suitable for inside the sewing room with the heat on. I'm a little warm, but I am definitely enjoying this, and I'm really excited to see the finished project. Anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Julie, and Mirage. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!